So, dark power, um, for the most part, is characterized by magic, which is sort of the basis of this entire thing. And magic is defined basically as things done directly to change or move or shape reality according to one's will, according to what one wants. And the more powerful the magic, um, the more is moved with less. So, in our imagination, sometimes, or even in sort of entertainment, magic is most sharply and vividly used, from the hands to sort of direct something right in front of you, something material to move seemingly only by this person's intent or will. It's like the most vivid and direct way of showing it, you know. And rituals are supposed to be actions or activities done over and over in a specific way, um, to strengthen magic, to strengthen one's ability to bring that into the world. And more often than not, there is some sort of deity or something that is viewed as a deity that supplies people with this force. And more often than not, these deities are biblical. Uh, not God. Actually, not God at all. It's usually what could be viewed as fallen angels or lesser deities or lesser entities that sort of resent that they aren't God and sort of actively disdain their position in the universe. Which sounds crazy, I know, but there are actually people who do this all over the world and have for some time. And, there are a lot of conspiracy theories that have formed around this over time. Um, but it's true. It's actually true. And there's something called the luck plane, which is just another way of talking about reality at large, but with a slight twist. Um, and it's the idea that one's magic or one's influence will, in the end, move and shape the material world in one's favor, so much so that it can kind of appear as you're more lucky or you're more fortunate. You've done enough sacrificing, you've done enough rituals, and your magic is powerful enough to where you appear lucky. The world seems to move so much according to your will that you just seem pretty lucky. And even words, speaking, as I've said in the past, that the most potent human speciality is the foremost force for all of this, the human voice. And, there's other elements as well. And one of those is money. Money is sort of viewed as a real, genuine type of magic, because if you look at money just in a sort of objective way, it is potential. Money is potential. If you have money stored somewhere in a bank, let's say, and you have lots of it, it puts you in a situation where you can literally move the world according to just about anything that you might want to do. And how a person spends money, what a person does with money, how a person treats money, their relationship to it, is usually sort of an extension of how they are. You know, like there's people with addictive personalities. There are people who never have any money. There are people who save money. Like there's lots of ways people use money, and it's usually an extension of themselves. Like it says a lot about a person, you know, how they even think about money, or if they even think deeply about it at all, you know. Because reality really genuinely is, in its most basic essence, it is potential more than anything, more than material, more than anything factual. It is potential, and a human being is a shaper and a mover of potential. Our minds are facilities in which potential is shaped, and our voices, our bodies, are what realizes that potential. Now, this is not a secret at all. This is exactly what goes on for us on a day-to-day basis. It's just that sometimes we can plug so much into the fact of our lives and the momentum of all of our decisions that, you know, we just kind of stop thinking about it. It's like breathing, you know, like people don't really need to think about this to go on, you know. It's just that sometimes, you know, you can take a step back and sort of have this objective look at reality and come to certain conclusions. You know, it really is just from observation. You know, it doesn't have to be a mystical sort of thing, you know. So within this, there is focus, and focus sounds like a really simple word, and it is. But one of the things, as I've said in the past, that sort of drew me back to, I guess, Christianity and just God in general, the idea of this universal force, was when I started to realize just how many people draw on this sort of dark power for themselves. You end up in this kind of situation where, you know, the Western world has convinced itself, or has been convinced, that there is no God or anything like that, while at the same time drawing power from forces that are supposed to be within the Christian pantheon. It's sort of pulling at both ends for such people, because it sort of hypnotizes the population away from the antidote, while drawing on these things to become more powerful. And I know that sounds pretty wild, but it's true. Like, there's just no way around that. It's it's become more and more within the public consciousness over the last 40 years. But at this point, as I sit here today, I think it's safe to say that those were not conspiracy theories. That this is actually how it is. And over time, this can develop a sickness in your society, like a real sickness. When you have people who influence the major parts of a society, who think this way and who act this way, you will eventually build a momentum, and the world will shape itself within a sort of sick and disfigured formation, and the minds of people will become sort of sick and disfigured. and it will seep into everything. And things that were once commonly, almost like day to day, healthy and functional, become sick, and things start to enter the equation that clearly is suffering. And I'm talking across the board here, like, genuine life, growth, and thriving cannot be fostered in such an environment, because this sort of dark power draws on growth, innocence, the life force of the world, the life force of humanity, to grow its own strength. So it's always disturbing the ratio of what we might call light and dark, good and bad. It's always entering what we might call sacred areas. And it's almost like a descending darkness, and people, it has to come to a head at some point. It can't go on that way, because people are going to start to notice. It's almost an inevitability where this sort of thing is going on, where it strangles the society and disfigures it so much people are going to notice. It just can't go on and on, because it has to break, and it will. It always has, and it always will. Whenever such forces are introduced on massive scales, like the ones who are involved in drawing these forces into the world always think that this time it's going to be different. Just how people tend to think normally with all things, This time it's going to be different. This time it's going to be successful, and we will truly make this work. Like, it's why things are cyclical. And like I've said in the past, if you don't learn what you need to learn from what you're doing, then you're just going to keep repeating it. And unfortunately, people don't learn what they need to learn, like, and one of the things to learn, of course, is not to draw on such things, because the kingdom of heaven is truly within. Like what I said earlier, the word focus. If you just focus on your own internal activities and look around you and sort of plug into the world and understand yourself as a human being, you'll never need to draw power from the material world. There's something in us that is an infinite source of power. And I know this to be true because it's what I do. There is something that is in people. It doesn't seem to tell you exactly where to go, but it does a good job of telling you where not to go. Like, as life presents situations and people, it does a pretty good job of saying no. It's almost like a pulse, or there's this kind of resonance, and if you don't say no, you're going to feel this thing that is sort of the beginning of what would eventually be guilt. Guilt is downstream from not saying no when you should have. And by the time you build this insanely dark world around you, guilt is the least of your problems at that point. Like you will be very, very not well off. And this thing is available for everybody. It's like we don't have to draw on these sorts of symbols and rituals from places we shouldn't be drawing on. And it's a strange thing that this keeps coming up. And I say that it's a strange thing, but at the same time, it's like I understand, because I understand the nature of things in general, I guess. These sort of things come into the world, and they never quite go away. Like it weakens for a time. But on the other end of it, you have almost the same sort of thing that happens with religion itself on the other end. It's almost like one side strengthens the other, and they're both under this sort of dark power hypnosis. And it's almost like this pendulum swings back and forth because people have done seriously dark shit with religion too. And religion's opposite as well, It's like it's such a delicate thing that seems to draw power to people and just inevitably ends up being used terribly. Like something like a church or a religion or a simple symbol like a cross. It's going to draw power to you. Like if you start saying the words in the Bible to people, like say you enter a land where nobody believes in any of this stuff, if you just keep saying it, people are you're going to draw people to you. It's just how it is. There's something in us that connects with what the Bible is trying to say, or many other religions, to be honest. There's something about the religious that just seems to land in people. It's going to draw power to you. And if you build a building that stays there and it's maintained, people are going to come to it, and give you money, and you're going to become powerful. But it just seems like it's a matter of time before it starts to become corrupted, And there is something in us that tends to do that. But the depths, I mean, all of us sort of have this dichotomy on a day-to-day basis. We all kind of have like an animal as well as a divine thing living in one organism, but they balance each other out pretty well, to be honest. Like the line between those two is a fairly balanced human being, But either one of those two things can be completely out of ratio and just take a person to the worst of places. And it seems like we can only stay balanced for a period of time as a society because power in and of itself, there are some people who are just drawn to power, who enjoy seeing their will done in others, who enjoy the idea of what I say goes, We meet a range of people all the time, and there's always a mixed bag of different types of people. There are some people who want to be told what to do. There's kind of a mixing and matching here. But from what I'm seeing, this has been taken to such an extreme that it brings such suffering into the world that I honestly would be happy to see beheadings for some of this stuff. And, it has no place in our world. And it's what happens when this stuff can exist in a sort of secret way and genuinely draw power to people. And when I say power, I'm always referencing money as well. Because you're dealing with people who are aware of both the power of the human being and one's own literal voice, as well as the power of finance. Because there are some people who are quite sure that everybody has a price. And I think that can be true, but not for everything, not for everyone. I think that there are people who are perfectly happy to find that price and get people to do the most disgusting possible things and find themselves in these situations where they can use this to wield the most possible power. Like I'm talking like on national scales, And I think society in general has always had this as an issue, this type of thing, you know. But I think what we're seeing in the modern era, it's like no wonder, you know. No wonder it seems like there's a sickness in the United States, in the West, because that stuff has been permeating for a long time. It's like no wonder so many things seem normal now, you know. And honestly, like, it really takes a studious people to not end up right back where they started with some of this stuff, you know what I mean? Because it really is like a hypnosis. The human voice, the human face, and the human hands are like the hypnotic trifecta. And it really is limitless what a persuasive person can pull off, you know. And I think such people have a responsibility to actually use it for good, you know. It's even to the point now where we're saying, you know, do good sounds like corny almost, you know. And this stuff slowly cooks over time, like it slowly builds over time. It's in entertainment and politics and finance. It's in everything. And slowly over time, you know, until it's just like societal motion. It's slow and over time, so you don't feel it, but you are accelerating very slowly, you know. If you're going 35 in your vehicle, but you just ever so slightly hit the gas, just ever so slightly, you know, you'll go to 35 and a half, 35 and 3/4, 36, slowly increasing. You'll get to 70, you'll get to 90. You just don't feel the motion. But once you're there, it's like almost an awakening. Like it requires an awakening, because that sort of motion can be hypnotizing. You know, it's like car accidents can happen just like that, because when a person's driving at a steady speed, at a constant speed, that's when you're most susceptible to hypnosis. When it feels like you're cruising, you know, you can sort of take your attention off of the process that is driving and pay attention to other things. You know, once you get up to speed, you're done accelerating, you don't need to slow down. And it's like you only need to recommit your focus when you do need to slow down or accelerate. But the key to the human being is our own attention, our own focus, where our attention goes and why, what it's allowed to be brought into, for how long, and what it does to our view of reality. Because small revelations on one level equate to large revelations on another. If they are truly true, if they are truly revelations, small things comprehended about ourselves apply on larger scales too. Like there's a through line from your own personal understanding of yourself and the world as well, and vice versa. So it's all important, you know, that there isn't anything that has no relevance. It's just a matter of relevant to what part and where, and it all matters, you know. So to just be drawn into somebody else's world, like you don't know what is their overarching view. You don't know if they, you know, view themselves as magicians or some kind of warlock, or you don't know if they have every inclination of being just a complete animal, you know. And what are morals even? What even is morality? Is it not a sense of no, you know? Because the world is going to present people with an entire plethora of situations. Why say no? Well, what is that says no exactly? Somehow you know when you're a child, you know, you have some inclination of what you're looking at, but not a full comprehension. The same can be said when you're older, but you just have a bit more of a comprehension of what you're looking at. But there is still that internal sense that kind of acts as a bulwark. You know, you gotta listen to that dude. Like it's there for a reason. You know, it is actually within, and there is no situation that it's not prepared for. But people can ignore it, I think, when there's a certain kind of hypnosis going on, when a person has come to understand the external world in a certain way that completely, in time, can override it. But I don't think it ever actually goes away, because think about how, you know, the idea of wealth and power, or even fame, just sort of, it gets to people, you know? Why? Well, why would fame be such an alluring thing to somebody? What is the true motive there? A person wants their essence to sort of have an almost magical effect on the world. They want to be kind of a magic in a sense. I mean, you even think of the words, like, people want to be worshipped. Worshipped, you know? I mean, that is really the ultimate form of hypnosis. A person is fully under some kind of spell if they're being worshipped by strangers who have never met them, who don't actually know them, who don't know why. They're being drawn to this person for what? You know, this person has resigned their agency, has resigned their own potential crafting abilities, and just completely given it to somebody else. And that is the peak of power to people. And there are some people who are drawn to that like a moth to a flame. And these forces never go away. Like human beings have forces in us, like I've said, that are exactly like motion. The laws of motion are almost indistinguishable from the patterns that we exhibit with our own activity and motion. You know, you could list the laws of motion and overlay them to how human beings act and react, and there's no difference. It's the same thing. Human beings are indeed reality, and reality is potential, and human beings are highly specialized potential shapers, potential movers. So the main thing too is people's intent, because you can't just not trust everyone, you know? That's the other extreme. That's also not where we want to be. You know, it's like people imagine like a utopian society. Well, what does that look like? You can trust everybody. You can trust everybody you meet, and you can smile at them because you trust them. You like them before you've even seen them, before you even met them, because you trust them. Now, how is that possible? When you don't have any ideas in mind about the intents of your peers. You don't have any idea that there's random people who always seek to take from you, who draw on your potential making abilities for themselves. Like that's what a utopian society is. When you know people are drawing upon themselves way that isn't akin to what magic is, or this sort of ritualistic darkness is, because that is a harvesting situation. Doesn't give, doesn't want to give, doesn't care about giving at all. It's the exact opposite, and if it ever does, it is for a greater harvest later. That's the whole purpose of it. And that's why it's dark power, because it takes, and you cannot be in a utopian society where everybody is taking from each other, including their money, where you're just shaving off the top, or you're trying to sell them shit that doesn't work, or that will make them sick. That's taking. That's not giving. That's not a fair exchange. And if over time you slowly build a situation where there is no exchange, it's all harvesting, it's going to end at some point. It's going to come to a head, because people will not live that way. It's not how we're meant to live. That's out of balance. And there's going to be these acute focal points that sort of reveal the structure behind the curtain, and people are going to see the truth, and it's going to verify what have been called conspiracy theories for decades, because people aren't stupid. As much as people would want people to be stupid, we aren't at all. Actually, to see some of these people in action speaking, they actually seem fairly non-intelligent themselves. It's almost like they have this harvesting mechanic, and it's drawn so much that it gives them their own sort of hypnosis about themselves and about the world that is just incorrect. But truly, like, to move toward a healthy society, like, what is a healthy society? Like, genuinely imagine what that is. How do people go about themselves, and why? Without having to be forced, without having to be told. People are able to trust each other, but that isn't just given. Trust is built, and it takes time. It's like the idea of the United States and America is actually one of the pillars that keeps people even able to trust at all, because it's an idea that we all kind of harbor just as human beings, and that's what the United States is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the place where people go to be able to trust each other. It's supposed to be the opposite of the past, of what's come before, and it's supposed to be the bulwark against where all that other stuff happens. That's supposed to happen somewhere else, You're supposed to be able to trust the police. You're supposed to be able to trust the grocery store, the people managing your money. You're supposed to be able to trust the president, his staff. I mean, truly, these people aren't supposed to be harvesting from the citizens, and I mean that both financially and spiritually, as well. As amorphous a term as that is, it directly applies. Why is everybody so sick? Genuinely, ask yourself that. Why is everybody so sick? Why is everybody so depressed? And I really do thank God for the internet sometimes, because it's been a slow build. For me, it's been a fantastic occurrence, and it allows the people of the world to say what they see, and to put it together in a place and synthesize it. Like, we need to be living in a place where people can genuinely trust each other, where you can meet strangers and trust them, and not have this attitude of needing to defend yourself against everybody you come across. It's no way to live, dude. And if people think from the top down the whole system is not only corrupt, but it wants something from you, that you always have to resist giving, that's no way to live. And I personally cannot wait for this last 40 years, this tranche of leadership and business leaders to either age out or just be gone, because you're not part of whatever awakening is going to happen. Like you're the opposite, actually. You're the spur for what is hopefully a better period of time. Because like I said, it does come in cycles, and you need to learn what you need to learn in order for it to truly become better. But in successive generations, people forget. People say this all the time, and it's completely true. Like, you have to teach the right things, you know. And even if you spend some time teaching the right things, it's not long enough, because over time, these forces that never go away will start to slip in this and slip in that, and start to slowly build the world around people, and the cycle starts all over. It never truly goes away, and it just so happens we're in this cycle right now. But that's the human condition, and I always actually have hope, though. It's like, if you end up hearing this, who are you in all this? Genuinely. I mean, I'm the sort of person where I have to leave the world better than I found it in some way, even if it's a little bit. To me, that's it's not like magic. That's like a similar concept, but the opposite of harvesting. I want to give something. I want to wilt. Let my essence be spread into the world in some way that gives it momentum or energy or a force that is good, that does not take from people. Like, well, why is it ever any other way? Why would you want to take from people? Like, if we're really trying to do something here and make a good world or a just world, why you can't do that when you're just taking all the time. That's like the wrong approach. Like, it's give and take. It's a back and forth. It's an exchange. That's what health is. You exchange this for that, but you both get value in the end. You don't just take. So, yeah, we'll see where all this goes.